Good day everybody! Today I'm going to share with you some tips and tricks for Viva success. I'm going to share some tips that are beneficial for you from the examiner perspective. Perhaps you can use this to improve your presentation skills. So I'm going to share with you the definition of Viva Voce. Viva Voce is the oral exam in which the examiner poses the questions. The student has to answer the questions in order to defend his or her research. The keywords over here is defend your research. You will not argue with your examiner, obviously. No. So we're going to look at the preparation for the Viva Voce. First of all, you need to understand your research area, because most of the students, like myself, who writes every single day, did not have a clear view which part that you're going to go. So what I'm going to say here, before you go much deeper, you might have to have a clear problem statement why you need to do the research. You might want to look at your objective and your aims. Is it measurable? Is it achievable? Most importantly, you have to read back your thesis. Why? Because we cannot find our own mistake after we finish up writing. One of the tips that I always do when I write something for my thesis, I go for a walk, I go hang out with my family, I go to have a cup of coffee. After 1 hour, 2 hours or a day, I come back and read back my thesis, and then I can identify some of the mistakes that I have done. Next one, you might want to know your examiner. Why? Because you want to tackle his personality, you want to tackle his perspective. Sometimes this is impossible because we don't know who our examiner is. But if you can identify this thing, that will be much more beneficial for you. Next one, you need to check your format and guidelines. Some of the research need to follow certain format. In other institutions, they have their own format in order to submit for a Viva. So is there any form that needs to be filled? Okay, you have to check the guidelines. Now, you have to have a simple, clear and precise slide. Slide is not the main attraction, but it's a tool or medium to help you to defend for your research. One of the tips I always do, less word and then limit one slide to 1 minute. Now, stop procrastinating. Do not prepare your slide within a day. Do not prepare your slide during the night before. You might want to prepare your slide within 1 week before the Viva. Why? Because during that time, you might want to identify some of the slides that need improvement. You get a feedback from a supervisor. Let your supervisor check for your mistake. Try to present in front of your supervisor, and perhaps he or she going to correct your mistake. So during the Viva, this is what you're going to present. But to my perspective, as an examiner for undergraduate, the weightage for your introduction is heavy, because we're going to look at your problem statement, you're going to look at your justification, we're going to look at your research problems and objectives. And then literature review, to me, we will not look at your literature review, but if you want to include that, yes, you may proceed. But we can get the clear picture from your previous presentation on the introduction. Now, the weightage for the methodology is different. It could be the most heaviest one, because we want to see how you conduct the research. We're going to see how you conduct your interviews or your questionnaires. How do you formulate the data and your research scope? And then during the analysis, how do you analyze all your data? And then the most heavy one is the results, because we're going to look whether you're achieving your objective, whether you're achieving your aim. When you're designing your slide, you might want to choose most simple themes that you can find. Less is actually more. And then less word, you can do that. It is a big mistake if the student put full paragraph and perhaps the examiner will read from that paragraph. Number 3, use some light background, because the examiner want to see what are you trying to say or trying to present, instead of looking at the beautiful background. Perhaps you can use some illustration, and then don't use some tiny font, and then after that you might want to use some high definition A. If you want to use some video, please use an HD quality. If you want to use images, you might want to do the same as well. Now I'm going to use some sample. If you look at my slides now, if you want to do some presentation using images, don't do such a thing, because first of all, you're going to confuse the examiner where to see first. I want to show you the ship in the bottle image, but this subject are text now, as no one would pay attention to these beautiful image that you want to show, whereby most of you guys over here will not bother to read this text at all, because starting at this line, people will not have a glance to what you have wrote, because they are bored. Now, you want to see this picture. This is a picture of a ship in a bottle, but you cannot see it very clearly because it's low resolution. But if you want to present a picture, you might want to do something like this. Clear, high definition, very big, and we can see ship in the bottle and some of the other ship underneath the bottle. Now, I'm going to do sample number 2. When you're printing your slide to your moderator or examiner, you might want to make sure your slide is readable by all people. What I'm saying is you have to use a clear font, it's readable, and please do not put any background behind the text. Now, next one. So you might want to use some clear, simple, and precise words. One of the examples that most of the students make is put tag in a sentence, so many tags in a sentence, and then they didn't use some clear words. They use some fancy words. Now, the most common PowerPoint mistakes that we can find, first of all, is too wordy, bad contrast, and then most of the common mistake that students did, they read the slide, they're not prepared, or audio is too loud. Next one, extreme transition and animation. The sounds is like booming or something like that. So that is not appropriate. And then after that, you are failing to practice. And then most of the students tend to read from their handouts, meaning that you are not prepared. We're going to look at the basic verbal techniques. First of all, you must have to speak very loud and clearly. You don't have to scream. Do not mumble because they cannot hear what you're saying. Use intonation. Sometimes your voice is going to be higher and sometimes your voice have to be a bit slower. Sometimes you might want to whisper some of the key points. And most importantly, do not stutter. Yeah, because that is why you have to practice. When you go to the Viva room, you might want to make yourself presentable. What I'm saying is your personal appearance have to be good. You have to wear formal with a jacket, with the tie on, because people are going to judge you within the first glance. Number 2, your structure and attractiveness of the presentation. Presentation is like a storytelling. People love a good story. You might want to tell the story very fluent. There is an ups and down, and then please avoid loophole, because these loophole gonna be a target for the examiner to shoot question. Next one, preparedness and confidence. That is why you need to practice. Please do not read the slides, do not stutter, and you must be prepared all the time for the questions, and then importantly, quality provided answers. When after your presentation is finished, the examiner will shoot you with some question. Perhaps you can answer this question according to what examiner requirement. Do not bullshit the moderator. Do not do that. If you don't know, you say you don't know. You can tell them, okay, I'm so sorry, I don't have answer to that question. Perhaps I can discuss with my supervisor later on regarding that particular issue. The most importantly, the attitude and composure. You have to be calm. Don't be rude. Don't raise your voice. Accept all the comments. I'm not saying you have to process all the comments. No, take all those comments to your supervisor and do some further discussion. If your supervisor in that particular room with you, do not look at your supervisor and hoping that your supervisor will answer for you. No, don't do that. Alright, I hope this will be beneficial for you. Thank you so much. I will see you next time on the next video. We're going to see you guys later. Bye bye.